ようこそどうぞはじめまして
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the GLORIO Chat, the best anime podcast on the internet. And let me just give you my personal guarantee that there will be no Avengers Endgame spoilers in this podcast. So you're free to listen. Although
people,
I do have to say it.
People really treat that as a big deal, huh?
I can't believe Thanos got whacked in the head by a crowbar.
At this point, by the time this episode actually gets out into the public, I feel like most people will have already seen it that care. Because I know I went on Friday at 8:30, and people online to get in were already saying they were on their second time going.
Jeez.
So
okay,
man, I as somebody who really cares about spoilers, I gotta say, there's a weird fucking discourse around Endgame. Like I'm seeing some like weird, like far too like reverent takes on Endgame. Like, people are it is your moral imperative to not spoil Endgame. Like, if you are a go ahead.
It is the conclusion to something people have invested 11 years of their time in. So I can understand why people care more about it than just any other.
Sure, but it's 11 years of like middling to somewhat decent, like eye candy. It's.
I know.
Yeah.
Look, I will never understand why people care, like how people care so much about anything to such a degree.
I mean, some things just matter inherently more, like giant robots. But
I don't know.
But I guess the thing I will say, the weirdest take I definitely saw was, like obviously there are cam rips for Endgame that are out already, right? Because that happens to all movies, right? Like spoilers, all movies eventually get filmed in secret and thrown online. And I was seeing some weird takes that were like if you truly care about geek culture, like you wouldn't film Endgame. Endgame should be experienced in the theater. Like you're doing your fellow geeks a disservice. And I'm like, yo, fucking take it easy.
This is the same kind of like holier than thou bullshit that is like, this game was meant to play on the best PC, and if you don't, you're disrespecting the developers.
Dare you not play at 4K 60 frames per second?
Yeah.
And you didn't even mention the 1610 monitor. Or is it 16:9? I don't
21:9.
21:9 monitor or whatever.
Yes, nerds never change.
I know I only watch my anime once it's been thrown through a really weird 60 FPS filter.
Fuck that shit, man. Hate that shit. Doesn't even make sense.
Yeah, I wish that that link to the last season's Kaguya-sama ED with dancing in 60 frames per second didn't get taken down. That was
just looks so weird, man.
That was interesting.
Don't call yourself a true anime fan unless you watch it in Japan on a shitty CRT TV at like 3 a.m. on some local channel.
The way anime was meant to be watched.
At like 2500 time or whatever.
Yeah.
Fucking their weird notation for that. Anyway.
Yeah. Anyway, so
what's the plan for today, Jel?
That's a good question, Iro. Because if you've been listening to some of our previous podcasts since the last one, we were kind of curious as to what we were going to do because, quite frankly, we're not really watching a lot of new anime this season.
I'm watching more than ever.
Well, that sounds like a personal problem.
I'm watching several things. I just don't think half of them are worth. Like speaking about.
I think even if we added them up, the grand total would not be enough to fill an entire podcast, and also have like enough to actually say about some of the shows, as we'll discuss. So
I mean, I feel like I feel like we are not exaggerating when we are saying this is one of the weakest seasons of anime in memory, at least.
Actually, I do think you're exaggerating.
I think we'll
like, I think the good shows are like really good, but then everything else is just like super boring.
That's the thing, and that's why I think you're exaggerating when you're saying this is one of the weakest seasons. I'd rather have a season with 2 absolutely fantastic shows like we have now than a season with like 5. Okay, I guess I'll watch this shows.
I think that's being unfair because well, we'll get into this later, but I don't think both of those shows are necessarily that fantastic. But
because they don't have any giant robots in them.
But B, it's, hey, sometimes there's nothing wrong with a season that is just a bunch of like 7 and 8 out of 10s.
Well, that was like last season, at least, right? Like,
and the one before that,
something to talk about,
and the one before that, and the one before.
I don't know if like I'd even.
I will not hear that talk when we get. We just we just had that season with like fucking Gridman and a bunch of other stuff just not too long ago. So
yeah, I just don't know that I'd give even like Demon Slayer Fairy Gone even a 7 or 8 out of 10 at this point.
No, but that's what I mean. Like the only reason we're even like for me, that's why I say this is such a weak season because like we would not even be watching those shows in like any normal season where the usual like high marks are showing up.
Yeah. So anyway, with that in mind, we're going to try to do something a little bit different this episode. And we're going to talk about some anime news and, well, anime or anime adjacent news. We will probably talk a little bit about games like we often do at the beginning of the podcast. For this episode, I want to touch on something maybe we'll try to do looking at anime turning 10 this season. So maybe we can do that as a seasonal event.
To all feel old together instead of just
so we can all feel old together. We can talk about that. And then we will talk about the two of the shows airing this season that we actually are watching, Carole and Tuesday and Sarazanmai. So hopefully that'll be enough to kill 90 minutes. We'll see how it goes. And yeah, so before we get into
talking about some dumbass show about a whiny bitch who won't get in the robot for 2 hours.
Oh boy, yes. Well, yes, that's another thing we'll get to at the
podcast.
End. Plug all the podcasts, but anyway, just to introduce everybody, I'm Gel. We also have Iro.
I'm still here.
Iro, as always, here with us. We have G.
I like the robot. I just don't like the kid getting into the robot. I think that is an entirely fair take.
That's another podcast. we'll get back into that later. And it's been a while, but we have Aqua back with us.
Finally, some taste back in this goddamn show.
Well, taste for a definition of the word, but yes.
So anyway, as we were saying, we're gonna kick things off by talking about stuff currently going on, and maybe we can just go around and ask what everybody's been watching, playing, because if we're not watching the currently airing anime, what other kind of stuff we got going on?
Sure.
So I don't know if anybody wants to volunteer to go first. What have you guys been up to since last episode?
Well, I have been watching the legendary 1988 science fiction OVA.
Bullshit, we haven't watched a single episode since last episode.
You're right. We need to catch up. We don't actually have that much time. We kind of need to watch those episodes and record. It's actually kind of a problem.
Well, you did watch another legendary show.
All right. Yeah. We have started. As of this, by the time you guys are listening to this, we will have released our first episode of our new and very relevant Neon Genesis Evangelion recap podcast. Where Gel, Iro, and I are watching the legendary 1995 mecha series. And as someone who has never watched it before, I'm kind of giving my live reactions and takes as we go through it. That's been very interesting. That's been a lot of fun. I'm very much kind of enjoying, making my way through this series and kind of just reacting to it organically on my own terms.
So in other words, if you want to hear someone being wrong for 2 hours and are tired of watching Fox News, you can listen to that.
Wow.
I don't talk for that long.
Come on, Aqua, I'm on there. And
Or
I'm
like starting our
going,
GLORIO, like our content has just been migrating further and further backwards in time. Honestly, like
I mean, I think it's more just a statement to kind of like we said, kind of what this season has been like. You know, that we're just kind of finding time to check out other stuff.
Yeah.
Look forward to our new podcast, GLORIO, in which we watch the original 1960s Dororo anime.
we'll
going further back than that. What do we got? Like fucking Astro Boy, yeah.
Gigantor. All right. Iroh or Aqua, you have anything to throw in?
I reread Sengoku Yoko by one Satoshi Mizukami, who
that's a good manga.
Did Planet With and Lucifer and the Biscuit Hammer. And it's still pretty good.
Is this your first reread, or is this?
Yeah, I've gone through Biscuit Hammer, Spirit Circle a few times, but Sengoku Yoko is like probably my least favorite of the bunch. Which is not to say it's bad, but kind of drags.
Yeah, it kind of drags in a couple of places. Like it's is it his longest manga?
It's like 100 chapters.
Yeah. I think I feel like Mizukami's best works are the ones that are kind of economic in their pacing, and I feel like I like Sengoku Yoko a lot as well. But I think it is definitely one where there are still some undeniably like really great high moments, but I guess not low moments. But it's like there are definitely those moments where it's like
I thought I was supposed to be talking about this.
Oh, my apologies.
Whatever. No, we move on.
All right. So talking about it. What other takes do you have on Sengoku Yoko?
I really like the chapter separation, where I like how it feels like it ends a third of the way through, and then goes, actually, that was chapter 1. Here's chapter 2, and that I really like the effect brought on by that.
Oh, so it's like Okami?
God,
I mean, like structure-wise, like where you think it's actually the end of the game, but it was only just part 1.
Kinda.
Yeah, I guess, huh? Yeah, it kind of does to do that structure in
retrospect. Now that you explained what you meant by like Okami, yes, it does kind of do that.
So it's like not chronological order type of thing.
It is, yeah, but like it just keeps going past where you thought it might end.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I don't know. Check out everything Mizukami's done. Lucifer the Hammer, Spirit Circle, and Planet With.
If you want to read Mizukami's third best manga, go ahead and check it out.
I mean, you might as well, because they're never going to get an anime, so...
It's true.
Yeah, very true. Aqua, do you have
anything
interesting you've been checking out?
To watch any like anime outside of the regular airing anime, but I did totally get this letterbox that I made to spell out anime was a mistake.
Agreed. I think we can all agree on that.
That's nice. Anime related.
Are you watching any other shows aside from from this season, aside from the ones we were going to talk about today?
No.
Okay. Just curious.
We're not even watching the Toku anymore, I think.
Oh, right. Rito Soldier. Right. Yeah, right.
That's right. New stuff came out, right? Like, that's all happening.
There is a new Sentai show, and it has the problem that every bad Sentai show has, which is they bring in some new writer who's like, well, how hard can it be to write this? And then it turns out that it's actually really hard.
I feel like there's a line when you're doing a like show for kids, there's a line between like totally patronizing to children and like respecting the children's intelligence with the writing. And I feel like that's the line between a decent kids show and a bad kids show.
Or at least like acknowledging that children have a sense of humor that isn't just like people shouting and falling over.
I don't know.
So that one's not good then, huh?
No, not really.
We cannot really recommend it. And that brings us to like,
go ahead.
The first season in forever where both Kamen Rider and Super Sentai are bad.
Yeah.
I feel like you guys have had other seasons where they're both not great.
It's been a few years.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which Kamen Rider aired alongside the Ninja?
Fuck.
Was it Ghost? I don't know.
Yes?
Probably.
I don't remember. It was so long ago.
I mean, Kamen Rider has been bad for so long that I guess the last bad Sentai also aired alongside a bad Kamen Rider.
Right. Tokuger and some, I don't know.
Tokuger aired with time, so.
That's right.
Yeah.
Throw that on the...
think it's weird, like...
Throw that on the pile of disappointment this season, then.
Hooray.
But, all right. Well, on my end, I'll just wrap things up by shouting out to my Grand Blue Fantasy crew as we destroyed the latest PvP event that happened in between episodes here, and we went 4-0. All challengers were decimated. It was pretty great.
Just gonna have a gel gotcha segment every.
I could literally talk about Grand Blue Fantasy strategies for the next 30 minutes, but I don't think
who can come up with a catchy jingle.
I don't think anybody wants to hear that. But shout out to my crew who are all. It's very interesting because I'm the only person that speaks English. Everyone else is Japanese. My crew leader does their best to communicate with me in English, and also they have in battle. Well, I guess in the chats too, they basically have line stickers, like if Grand Blue Fantasy was line. Yeah. So we all communicate with line stickers, and it's all very pure and wholesome and positive. Everyone's like, "Yeah, let's do it. Good job," So it's
you're the token foreigner in their quirky squad.
Yes. So I'm like, what was the guy in Angel Beats? That just
TK.
Yes, I'm like TK from Angel Beats, where I'll randomly say something in English,
You'll say "get chance and luck."
Yes, I'm like, "Get chance and luck," and everyone's like spamming stickers at me. It's it's pretty great.
I mean, you know what? At least Grand Blue has enough depth to it to even, I guess, endear something like that.
Because
the gacha games I play, boy, there's not a whole lot to talk about there. So
because you see, G, now that I've hit rank 120, I can uncap my Omega weapons and summons, particularly the summons. And so to do that,
do tell.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll leave that one alone. Okay, so let's get into some news items. And we'll kind of talk about some of the things that happened since last episode. I'm going to start with some of the more serious items here first and get those out of the way. First, I think probably most prominently was the passing of manga artist Monkey Punch, most famous for creating Lupin III.
Most famous for creating the design of Lupin III.
Sure, yeah. I'm not sure how much, because I mean, I've mostly
has had so many different variations over time that
right. But,
true. But I do think there's something to be said. Again, I mean, look, I have not read the original, Lupin manga. Hell, I haven't even watched the original TV anime series. But I think there's something to be said about effectively creating, an iconic character. I mean, even if that character does get analyzed and remixed and revamped, time and time again, I think, that stuff doesn't happen by coincidence. That doesn't happen to every character. There has to be kind of a specific mixture of traits and things that come together to create a character that can be interpreted in such a diverse manner.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting that, we just had the series, last year, or was it not even a year ago, right?
Yeah, part 5.
The part 5 series that you guys all really loved. And, I didn't watch it. From what you guys are telling me, it seemed like sort of almost like a celebration of the character, right? And like how it was both like a statement that Lupin will live on forever, but also probably could have been a place to, if they never made another Lupin again, that would have been a good place to stop.
Yep. Yeah.
Totally, yeah.
It's one of those coincidental deaths that just happens to coincide with like the latest released project, sort of like revitalizing the work that the author has created and sort of serving as a kind of, I would always say, vanguard of his passing.
Right.
So it is one of those, I mean, if you think of it as like, it happens more often than you think, but I could compare it to the death of David Bowie, who, like, before he died also...
Well, that was just, like, uncanny and also very appropriate what happened with him, but yes.
Yeah. Who, like, released an album about, like, his legacy and how he was going to die, and it became one of his most acclaimed albums in years, and then he died. So, like, this is very similar. Like, you have this Lupin anime that is about the legacy of Lupin, what he means.
Wasn't, like, the release date set, like, in advance, and then, like, he died, like, the day before it released or something like that?
I think he died, like, 3 days after it released or something.
Oh, it was, like, really weird, close, but yes. But,
I mean, this just reminds me of that. It is one of those, like, macabre as it is to say, one of those perfectly timed deaths.
Right. Yeah, well, I know what you're saying. It's not like, we're not making light of it, but just, it seems appropriate that was, the timing of it. But yeah, I mean, it's, I guess Lupin obviously is a iconic anime character who is still with us. Like we said, they're still putting out content, less than a year ago that we've seen. So
yeah,
the legacy carries on for sure.
I was just sorry, I was just going to use it as a segue. I was going to say, if you want to talk about like not coincident, not convenient or coincidental, but very interestingly timed passings, that actually kind of leads us into our the next unfortunate passing that happened in this past couple of weeks.
Yes, so there was another notable passing with Kazuo Koike, who I'm not as familiar with, but he was a contemporary of Monkey Punch.
Yes.
Most famous, I believe, for the manga Lone Wolf and Pup. Is that the title?
Lone Wolf and Cub. Yes.
Cub. Yes. Okay.
I watched Lone Wolf and Pup.
Yes, Lone Wolf and Pup would probably be a different anime.
But yeah, I thought it was kind of an interesting. I mean, again, a very misfortunate timing, I suppose. In fact, his last tweet that I think was made
was about Monkey Punch
on the day of his passing, was about how he had always considered him and Monkey Punch to be kind of, eternal rivals in terms of, being these very like seminal seinen mangaka. Like they kind of created some of the most noteworthy properties in the seinen genre. Lupin for Monkey Punch, and then Lone Wolf and Cub for Kazuo Koike.
Yeah,
and I will also say Kazuo Koike, interesting figure because he also yes, everybody knows him for Lone Wolf and Cub, which is kind of this like masterful, iconic, bloody samurai seinen manga, but he also created Mad Bull 34. For those unfamiliar with that, Mad Bull 34 is it is a seinen cop action manga that takes place in a very anime version of New York City, and being created in the 70s or 80s. It is totally exactly what you might think it is.
What, super racist?
Yeah, all of it.
Oh,
all of it. everything.
Yeah, but everything. It is tawdry, it is violent, it's crass, but there's also an undeniable, like, masterful sense of humor at work there. Like, I was reading a few chapters of Mad Bull 34 in the wake of his passing, and you can definitely see, like, where a lot of the seinen genre kind of takes a lot of its cultural inspiration from when you're reading a work like that. Just kind of the sensibility, the violence, yes, the sex, the gore, etc., etc. I'm not saying those are either good things or bad things, but you can definitely see a lot of the foundation there.
Right.
Yep.
I think the only property I'm even remotely familiar with is I think I saw some of the Crying Freeman OVAs in like the early to mid 90s when I was
right. He did that as well.
Teenager looking for anime with sex and violence in it. I really don't remember anything about them other than the name, but I know he also wrote that series as well. So yeah, unfortunate news, but they're both in their 80s when they passed, left quite a legacy. So
yeah, I mean, I don't want to get too morbid here, but we are definitely reaching that that era when a lot of those iconic names are definitely getting older. And
Stan Lee died recently.
Yeah,
Go Nagai, probably not too much longer.
Yeah, Uncle Go
is only like in his early 70s, right? He's not.
He's younger. Go Nagai, like we talk about.
He's in his 70s. Yeah.
Yeah, we talk about his sex and violence sensibilities, and reading Mad Bull 34. I was like, oh, this is probably where even Go Nagai himself probably got some of that inspiration. So.
Right. All right. Well, like I said, they've left those legacies that will continue to live on. So, yeah. All right. Let's move along to a story came out from a Madhouse production assistant who was seeking compensation for some of the overwork he experienced working at the studio. I believe he still works at the studio, but obviously we've heard many stories about overwork in the anime industry, but I thought this one was particularly notable because he gave a lot of details about what happened. Mm. And a lot of people are not always willing to come forth with the details because, they don't want to jeopardize their livelihood. But, he did not portray his experience in a good light at all. And just some of the highlights from the story that, I'll link this in the post, that Anime News Network translated some of the content from the original article. But he said in his worst month, he worked 393 hours, which is about 13 hours a day with no days off, if you do the math on that. He mentioned that Madhouse's policy does not pay you after 50 hours per week, which they still expect you to work more, and they do not explain this to you before you are hired on with the company. And, I guess the last straw for him was he just was walking home at like 7 a.m. one day and just literally collapsed and just ended up in the hospital. And then he did say they told him to take a day off, but he went back to work the next day.
Yeah, I mean,
he's trying to. I guess they're trying to. He joined some kind of union or something. I don't know how much authority that has in the current industry or whatever. But
in Japan,
yeah, I don't.
Right, you hear these stories out of basically every studio except like KyoAni, who are like notable for being not garbage when it comes to this sort of thing.
Yeah.
And that's everywhere. And yep. I
think it is definitely one of those things where, anime is obviously going to be the industry we are most keyed into, but you kind of just always hear about kind of just the very like really, really messed up work ethic and conditions that is kind of endemic to, it seems, a lot of Japanese businesses and industries. But I think it's more striking with anime because, and not to say it's justifiable elsewhere, but anime is such a uniquely like poorly rewarding industry for its workers.
There's a specific set of circumstances that make it worse for the anime industry.
Like it's bad enough to like fucking work yourself to death, but to work yourself to death for, I mean, not literal pennies on the dollar, but like, for very low pay, like we're talking like, near minimum wage. It's kind of, I mean, again, minimum wage, but then even without overtime pay, right? Like it's kind of appalling, frankly.
It speaks to the disposable nature of anime to see how it is created, like completely distant from any sort of rhyme or reason. And I think we see a very similar thing in the gaming industry where the thing is that it's unsustainable. The anime and the games that we have nowadays simply should not exist. We should not have this many anime coming out, games that are so massive, so good looking coming out, because every time one of these comes out, there's always a story of how people were exploited and how people actually had to overwork to get it done. So we are punching above our weight. We are getting things that should not be, that should not exist. And I can understand how for many fans of those products is like, this is unimaginable. What if we can never have another game like Red Dead Redemption again? Because, Red Dead Redemption 2, was made, it is the biggest, grandest game of all time, but it was also made on the backs of people who were not rewarded for the way too much work that they did. So that game has no right to exist. And I can understand how it's very hard for fans of those kind of things to sort of ignore that or skirt around that, because it's very uncomfortable to live with the idea that the thing you like was not, in fact, a work of love and dedication, but one of, exploitation, greed, abuse. And I don't really know what to say about that. I can offer no solution for this, aside from just, claiming to take the moral high ground and say, I don't participate in this. I won't watch these anime. I won't buy these games. But
you won't watch any anime ever.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's that. I mean, then you get into like a weird,
and the thing is, that won't change anything.
Right.
I mean, to take this back to anime, the thing I will say that perhaps frustrates me about it is we already talk about how there's too much anime every season. We talk about this every seasonal preview. We pick like the dozen or so we think that are worth talking about, but there are always like 20 to 30 to 40 like TV series airing every season, season after season. Like we were talking about like hundreds of anime being created in a single year, and most of those fall by the wayside. Most of those are barely worth talking about.
I remember a headline from several months ago that was like some executive at a studio being like, "Well, if we don't work employees so hard, we'll have like a fourth of the anime we have now."
I'm like,
okay, what's the downside? There's no downside.
Yeah, and I guess obviously, and not portray this argument disingenuously, like, of course there's always the chance that, like, if we get a quarter of the anime, that also includes a quarter of the good anime, which, we already kind of struggle to get enough good anime.
The ratio will be the same.
I mean, there's also if you're making less than studios, there's a pretty good chance studios are going to be more risk averse, and we're just going to eat.
Right.
It might even not be that the anime, the good bad ratio will be worse, but maybe the middle ratio will be higher. Everything's going to be middle of the road because you have to. If you can only make,
they'll just only make the stuff that brings in all the money. So idols all day, baby.
And so that's why I feel like my concern then isn't really necessarily with the product, but it is more with the intrinsically broken like economic model of anime. Like,
yeah,
right.
The idea that anime, like, yeah, just like the idea that anime is made in a way where it's like, oh, well, we have to keep churning out the trash because if that trash sells like 3,000, 4,000 like Blu-ray copies, that's already a success. That's already like financial solvency. Yeah. It's like, what kind of fucked up economic system do you have where like, because here's the thing, you were just talking about games, Aqua, but I feel like at least with games, and I'm not going to say this is necessarily a good thing, but at least with games, like a studio like Rockstar, a studio like, EA or Activision or whatever, like, and I'm not saying this is necessarily a good system, but it is a different system, but they are spending all of their resources to create a single bespoke product.
That's true.
One that is refined beyond measure, again, refined beyond reasonable, humane measure, but it is... I guess I don't know necessarily if I'd say that's a better economic model, but it almost feels like it has to be compared to anime, where
it is a different economic model. And like I said, I called anime disposable earlier because the supply and demand for that thing is so weird and messed up. But I think that you hit the nail right on the head when you said it. That it's basically like, I think you can look at it even more cynically than that. Anime or the anime industry is just, we throw everything we have at the wall and see what sticks. And if it doesn't stick, then it's just a loss. Then it's just like a complete waste of time. Yeah.
And I think that's the thing. Is like, I'm not saying, the anime industry would improve if studios only focused on 1-2 productions a year. Like obviously, that can have its own myriad of issues, as we see with the games industry. But I wonder, and again, I'm not an economist. I can't say, I don't write for, Japanese Business Insider, like I can't say I know what the solution is, but I mean, if I want to get very high level, the problem starts with Japanese work culture.
Yeah.
But if I want to go a little bit lower than that, then I feel like the problem lies with the business model of anime. It's like something has to change there, because if that doesn't change. Because here's the thing, right? Like, I mean, I think, KyoAni and like, what's the other studio that's kind of famous for this? I think Toei, right?
Even Toei's got its own problems, but...
Toei has problems as well, but I mean, I heard that they are trying to be better. But like, the problem is that how much can these changes like improve things if they're still, working to the intrinsically broken model of how anime makes money? Like, isn't KyoAni kind of an exception only because they kind of got lucky enough to like make these like extremely... popular and like
I mean, KyoAni had the luck of starting out with a great budget because they made a lot of hits early in their career, and this has allowed them to, I think, implement a certain degree of measures that allows them to sort of counteract the toxic elements of the anime industry, like having longer development times for their anime. Like KyoAni has mostly finished their anime by the time they start airing. And this is not the case for many other studios. Right. And I think, but don't quote me on this, but I think KyoAni also has more actual fixed employees than other anime studios, which mostly work using freelancers.
Right.
Yeah. Let me just add to that point. This is something we've talked about many times, but basically since maybe about 2015, KyoAni's only done like 1 TV series a year and then like 2 movies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So they have actually reduced the amount of like animated content they're putting out. And it seems for them, the movies have been maybe that's a more successful return on investment on what they're, in terms of money they're making per, compared to,
substantially less footage than a TV show. Yeah. Even if it's like higher frames and more quality, like, more complex. It's still like
they have actually
90 minutes.
And it's been long enough where I don't think that's a fluke. I mean, I think that's their plan now is, they do like, one TV series and like 2 movies basically for, the past now going on 4 years. So, but as we pointed out, they got themselves into a position where they had the flexibility to do that. And I don't know if every other anime studio is going to be in that.
Yeah, that's what I want to get into. Is this is kind of like everybody talks about like Nintendo or Valve to use games comparisons. or Valve from like 10 years ago at this point, where they're like, oh, how come more game studios can't be like Valve or Nintendo?
Because they don't have the fucking war chest of
exactly.
$billions.
It's like, I don't know if the word privilege is the right term here, but like they have the privilege to take that long that frankly most game studios don't. And I have a feeling that applies to anime as well. Like most anime studios don't have the privilege of spending a year or two developing one series. I mean, the vibe I get, frankly, from most anime studios is that they are constantly on the verge of wildly spinning out of control and exploding at any moment, And I guess it's like, I guess that's the thing, right? Is like, I think the KyoAni model of like self-sustainability is admirable, even if I think it does result in products that, frankly, I don't think are very interesting. But I don't know how many other anime studios can realistically achieve that, which is why I say that the change needs to happen at the very top. And the business model needs to change, because I feel like the culture changing is only going to be inevitably struggling against the tide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also saw some articles I didn't include this week about streaming revenue from Japan rising pretty dramatically over the past year too. So
I hope so. I mean, I hope that changes.
Yeah, maybe as we adjust further away from Blu-ray sales and other means of revenue, but
or not even Blu-ray sales, but Blu-rays that cost like $50 for 3 episodes.
Yes, that
like,
kind of.
It's merchandising sales. It's always been merchandising sales.
Yeah, like we've always talked about the we've always talked about the absurdity of like, buy the Gurren Lagann or Fate Zero complete BD set for like $300. It's it's I feel
fucking
like
absurd.
It's ridiculous. It's absurd. No, if any Western television production attempted to sell their Blu-ray for that much, they would be eviscerated. They would be laughed out the door. But I don't know. It's just, again, I feel like we could. I almost feel like I kind of, not because I don't think this is a good topic, I almost wanted to say we shouldn't put this topic in the podcast, because I feel like this topic could easily be its own 90-minute podcast. But
we did just spend like 20 minutes on it.
Yeah, like there's just so many like aspects to it that I feel like make it such a complex and difficult situation to kind of discuss.
Yeah, I mean the main solutions of making less anime, or I've also heard making shorter anime. I mean, would that help? Probably, but it's certainly more complicated than that, I think.
Yeah.
So you're saying the future is in hentai shorts?
Yeah, sure.
Those are very, very profitable. But
speaking of the potential of studios just doing the things that made them successful over and over again.
Okay,
thank you, Eero.
Yes, thank you. So, I wanted to mention, and this wasn't a huge news story, but somebody had asked one of the main producers at PA Works what they wanted to do, and he mentioned he wanted to do a new project with Jun Maeda. And
no thanks.
Unfortunately, the man in question has been fired immediately.
Well, here's the thing. So, if anybody's not familiar with Jun Maeda, he's a writer from the key visual novel studio. He's responsible for visual novels like Canon, Air, and Clannad, which like defined that a certain era of anime in the early to mid 2000s, I think.
Yes, early 2000s fucking just
yeah. And so he later on went on to work with PA Works specifically on Angel Beats, which was an original project, and also most recently Charlotte,
which was one of the worst things I've ever seen.
Not good.
So the thing I'm going to say real quick is not to say that this isn't a noteworthy like talking point, but I feel like just saying I would like to work with so and so doesn't really mean anything until we hear about an anime that's actually involving them.
Here's why I'm bringing it up.
Because you always hear in news about like,
Guillermo del Toro wants to make a video game.
Right. Or From Software says it would love to make another Armored Core. Like,
Well, yeah.
I feel like until we actually hear an announcement, this is just some dude just kind of mouthing off like, hey, it would be cool if,
Yeah. So I do have a reason.
It wouldn't be cool, frankly, but
I do have a reason beyond that for bringing it up.
Sure.
So, shortly after Charlotte came out, Jun Maeda was hospitalized with a rare heart disease.
Oh,
in which he.
That's right. He actually suffered from nebulous anime disease.
Yes.
Are you fucking kidding me? Look. I mean, no. Okay, before we got any further, I want to say that I don't wish any ill will upon Jun Maeda, and I hope I wish him a speedy recovery. But are you fucking?
Yeah. Yep.
So, are you kidding me? He actually contracted the nebulous anime heart condition.
So in 2016, he was hospitalized with this rare heart condition and announced that he needs a heart transplant, actually.
Oh my God. Fucking life imitates art.
And yes, again, not making light of it, but it is dramatic irony here. And he hasn't really been seen doing much since. He did work on Key's latest visual novel, but I'm not entirely clear if that was before or after he got sick, which came out last year. But we haven't really heard much from him. I didn't hear any response on this, so I'm just saying I hope the guy's all right, because when the guy from PA Works kind of makes just a nebulous comment of I'd like to work with Jun Maeda here in those circumstances, it makes me wonder if the guy's doing okay. But
yeah. I mean, I think no matter how much anathema or we might hold for certain anime creators, we don't.
Yeah.
Unless their name is Mitsuo Fukuda, we don't hold that strong. We wish the best for.
I hope he does get to make his project with PA Works again. But
I mean, look, Angel Beats was fine. I liked it.
Let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Yeah,
whatever. I enjoyed it for the stupid thing it was.
It was good. I don't think it was the masterpiece some people thought it was.
Oh no, not a fucking chance.
The thing people always forget about Angel Beats is that it's like 80% dumb slapstick comedy and like 20% tearjerker.
Yeah, and those comedy bits are sometimes pretty good. So.
I already got one shout out to Angel Beats earlier in the podcast. We're still referencing it, but and I do like some of his works to varying degrees. I have long been a Clannad defender, but I do not want to get into that right now. We got other stuff.
We should not get into what I still consider to this day kind of the dark ages of anime. So
what's next on the list here?
So yeah, I hope Jun Maeda is all right, and let's move on.
The Seiun Awards are coming up, I guess. Seiun.
Can you explain what those are?
They're like big award thing in Japan, similar to the Hugo Awards in the States. I guess not just the States, but where it's a like science fiction fantasy award thing, and they've had like visual media and like comic categories for many years, and I guess now the nominees were announced earlier this month.
And what was nominated?
So several things are on the anime list, including visual media list, including SSSS.GRIDMAN.
Hell yeah!
Cells at Work. Dragon Pilot. Beatless.
How did Beatless?
I don't. These are nominated by like attendees.
So exactly the same problems that
yep,
the Hugos run into.
Pacific Rim 2 and Planet With.
Yes.
Yeah.
Also,
that list is
just noting in the manga category
Oh,
also has a Satoshi Mizukami work. One of his shorter one shots about robots. I think it's let's see here, Kyomu Oyuku, which I think it's like Walking the Void or something.
Is that the one where like that's not from the anthology? Is that a new one? Oh, it is from the anthology. Yeah, that anthology was really solid. I liked that a lot.
Spaceship that's also a robot.
Yeah, that one. Yes.
Anyway, I don't know, some like decent stuff up for awards.
Some very not decent stuff up there too.
But like, if you look at the like old list of stuff that's won, it's all generally pretty good stuff.
And also Kimono Friends.
Yeah, and also Kimono Friends.
I mean, look, I know not a goddamn thing about that show other than it seems like people like that show a lot.
Did Kimono Friends win? Okay, yeah. I don't know.
I mean, you said it was voted by fans or attendees, right? So of course it's going to be a popularity contest.
Let's see here. The past few years, I'm going to read the past few years here.
All right.
So here, 2014, Pacific Rim won.
Hell yeah.
2015, Space Battleship Yamato 2199, the movie.
Hell yeah.
2016, Girls und Panzer, the movie.
Sure.
2017, Shin Godzilla. And 2018 was Kimono Friends.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it varies, but on the whole, like, some really good stuff is on this. I'm just happy that, like, Mizukami's up for double. Like, fucking...
Yeah, that's cool. I mean...
Like, my perception here, like, in the West, because nobody fucking knows who Mizukami is here, is that, oh yeah, he's just, like, the fucking underdog, and nobody likes his shit, and nobody knows about him.
I mean, like, I think
he's up for these awards, like, relatively often in Japan, so I just wonder if, like,
he's always
he's actually popular over there, or something like that.
The vibe I've always gotten about Mizukami's, the reception to Mizukami's works in Japan is... I don't mean this as in fact, I don't mean this as an insult at all. In fact, Iro, you are the only person here who will understand why this is a compliment. But the vibe I get from Mizukami is that he is a mangaka's mangaka. If that makes sense. He is a creator's creator in the same way that, like, mecha designers like the G-Self from G-Reco. But the mainstream audience doesn't really care for it. Is that they're, the G-Self and Mizukami's works are, like, they're charming and, like, slightly, like, not incongruous, but they're, like,
I understand.
Unorthodox in ways that make them not necessarily, like, the kind of things that are going to be the big appeal, the big mainstream stuff, but people who care deeply about, like, the craft and the industry, like, really appreciate the work he does.
I probably. I don't know. Thing is, his art's not that great, honestly. But, like, his storytelling is top notch.
Right. I mean, yes, that is definitely.
Planet With is the true inheritor of the Gainax Robot legacy.
Yes.
Fight me.
If only it had the Gainax Robot legacy budget. But yeah, some cool nominees there. I mean, for me, obviously, I'm going to be pulling for Gridman. But if Planet With wins that would also be. Look, I'll take that over a lot of the other things on that list.
If Beatless wins, and I'm assuming it's because it mentions Red Juice was nominated for art category, so there must be some Red Juice fans in here. But if Beatless wins, we're just shutting this thing down.
I don't even remember what Beatless was.
We're closing anime forever.
Yes.
I genuinely don't even remember what Beatless was.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like the robot girl, like, vaguely cyberpunk one.
It's the one they had to cancel, like, the last, like, 3 episodes.
Yeah, there we go. That's the actual.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm guessing Gridman's gonna win. That's my.
I hope so. Yeah. I mean, look, they picked some pretty good ones in the past. I mean, fuck, Pacific Rim. Yamato 2199. Those are
fair choices.
Some real solid.
I mean, yeah, like other good stuff has won, including Royal Space Force and
nice.
Cowboy Bebop.
Sure, okay.
Police Sentai Deca Ranger.
Ira, you just set me up for transition. Speaking of Royal Space Force.
Okay.
Which you're probably going to wonder how in the world I'm going to get to that on the next topic.
Wait. I feel like I'm the only fucking person here who actually gives a shit about Royal Space Force. So and I don't see the segue here.
Right, so I wanted to mention, I saw a headline that Maiden Japan, Maiden being like young lady, not made in, licensed the 2016 anime comedy This Art Club Has a Problem, which led me to ask the question, who or what is Made in Japan?
They're some licensing company, right?
Yeah, I had never heard of them before, so I looked it up, and apparently they're the ones who have the licenses for a lot of the old shows that are on High Dive, and they have like the streaming and Blu-ray.
Sound like not Sentai Filmworks?
No, not for the old shows. So like Sentai gets the new stuff, but like so they're the ones that have like the Pat Labor and like Armored Trooper.
Right, but like when you go to the like Sentai booth at Anime Expo, they have all that shit. Like they have like Mad Bull 34 and Violence Jack.
They're probably teamed up with them. But Royal Space Force was another.
I should pick up that DVD next.
Royal Space Force was another one they have. And so, it seems that this company has deemed, 2016 modern classic comedy, This Art Club Has a Problem, which I'm always talking about, worthy of adding to that collection of all-time classics.
Yeah, sure, fine.
Okay, I guess in that context, yeah, that is a very interesting pick, I guess, because like when you list all the other stuff they license, like you kind of get like a theme, right? Like, or kind of a vibe for what they're picking.
They don't. I was looking at their site. They don't. It's not like all robot shows, but they are pretty much all old. So I thought it was very.
I mean, yeah,
a lot of notable old shows are robot shows.
Yeah, I mean,
what was that? Right? Like,
yeah, it was that era when like shows were not called mecha shows, just anime had robots in them.
Very strange that if they were going to pick up a recent show out of all shows, that was that one. But I'm telling you, that show's good, people. Don't be fooled by the first episode.
I just thought Made in Japan was the Japanese equivalent of Miss America.
that does fit pretty well, actually. Anyway, Aqua, this is the one you threw on. The Heisei era has ended. We're now in the Reiwa era.
Well, it's ending in a couple days.
Days. So now's your last chance to get a sample of the Heisei era air, like a can of air.
Heisei air.
So what is happening is that a Japanese company is like canning air en masse in order to sell it once the Reiwa era starts as Heisei era air from the good old days for $9.
You know
what is preventing me from doing that myself?
Not being a fan.
The fact that you didn't come up with this idea first.
I mean, I don't know, man. You still got a couple days. If you start now, you should be able to get a pretty decent stockpile. You know, if you move quickly.
How do we make airtight?
So,
but yes.
Do you know what I actually really love the most about this story?
What's up?
Is that this is the perfect explanation for. This is the perfect explanation for in a piece of like dystopian fiction, where mankind has poisoned the earth, and mega corporations sell clean, purified air at a premium.
Spaceballs
from the good old days.
This is the perfect explanation for why and how the plucky heroes managed to uncover an underground stockpile of Heisei era air from before we poisoned the earth.
Their superpowers come from breathing that Heisei air, but only lasts for 5 minutes.
Exactly.
Heisei era air is people.
Yeah. All right. So I guess we're gonna condense down here. I did want to mention one more news thing. There was a lot of Persona 5 going on as they're continuing to milk that franchise. We did get the announcement yes. Well, we had Joker and Smash came out since last episode, which we knew was coming.
Still a little bit unbelievable, even though it's already happened.
Didn't know that was coming. Yes. We did know Persona 5 R was coming, but we didn't have any details until this week. We saw the trailer. It's pretty much exactly what you would expect. It's from the...
It's Fez / the Golden.
Yes. So there's going to be some new characters.
What if we gave Persona 5 its own Marie?
Yes. For the record, I have zero desire to play. I loved Persona 5. I have zero desire to play it again right now, even with new content. But
if they have a save transfer function like Persona 3 to Persona 3 Fez, then I will gladly play that game again, but I will not play fresh.
Yeah, so that's what I was going to say, is I feel like, look, I liked I liked aspects of the Golden, and Fez is the version of Persona 3 that I played, but I feel like in 2019, in the era of like digital like games and services that we live in, I feel like Persona 5 Royale, like Royale, whatever, that should be $30 DLC.
Right.
Or at least there should be an option for people who already own Persona 5 to like purchase the Royal upgrade that like lets you do like a new game plus transfer and all that stuff. Like the idea of like, as Jel said, the idea of buying Persona 5 Royal fresh and playing from a fresh like file, that doesn't sound
unappealing.
That appealing.
Sound interesting to me at all, no.
This is an incredibly antiquated business model. This is like releasing an expansion pack in like 2019.
I mean, I'd say it's even more antiquated in some ways because at least like, you know, expansion packs were usually priced, you know, to reflect that.
Yeah.
You know, this is a $60 product. You know, it kind of reminds me of like, you know, like this is a very weird tangent to go on. I apologize, but you know, I've been playing some Dragon's Dogma lately.
Oh yeah.
The Switch discourse has convinced me to try and play that game for the third time. But related to that is Monster Hunter, specifically Monster Hunter World. And the fan base is kind of very anxious right now. The Monster Hunter World fan base is kind of like sitting on pins and needles because Capcom hasn't really confirmed one way or the other what form the next Monster Hunter game is going to take. For those unfamiliar with Monster Hunter, usually what they do is they release, like, for example, Monster Hunter 4. And then they do Monster Hunter 4G or 4 Ultimate, which is like a re-release that is an entirely, you know, it's the same game, but with like new monsters and higher difficulties added. And it's usually just an entirely new game. There is no save transfer. There is no like any of that stuff. And that was like barely tolerable in like 2012. In 2019, people are very concerned that, oh God, is Capcom going to keep doing that even now? Like, are they going to tell everybody who played 200, 300, 400 hours of Monster Hunter World that, hey, I hope you're ready to do that all over again?
World was already different because they've been releasing regular new stuff into it, right?
They have been releasing new DLC and new monsters, but the thing that the re-release usually adds is known as G rank. It is like a, you know, it's like a new game plus mode, essentially.
Like they're raising the level cap, basically.
Yeah. And in the past, that was only ever available in the re-releases. So people are kind of concerned, oh God, what if they don't offer that as DLC? What if that is an entirely new game? And I feel like that and stuff like this, you know, Persona 5 Royal, it's like, I don't know, man. It's like, I'm not saying Western games or the way they do things is great. I'm not saying, oh, Destiny or The Division 2 are how all games should be. But
Division 2 is pretty solid. Just going to say that.
Yeah, I guess what I mean more is the content delivery method. I really would hope that I think Japanese games would kind of learn from their Western counterparts in that regard.
Yeah.
And like, you know, make these things big DLC updates instead of entirely new.
I mean, if it's a
product,
if it's a glimmer of hope, they have announced Kingdom Hearts 3 DLC instead of the traditional re-release that they have done.
Oh, good.
That series.
Yeah. That's true.
Well, we've all seen how Square Enix handles their DLC plans with what happened to Final Fantasy 15.
Final Fantasy 15 got a lot of DLC, though.
Yeah,
but it did not even get the DLC that most people were excited for.
They cancel. They canceled the Highwind
stuff.
Yeah, like didn't they cancel the DLC for like the one and only like notable female character in that game?
They canceled both DLCs for both of the only two notable female characters.
Wow.
Right? Yeah.
And of course, the one they kept around was like the male character, right?
The hot villain man.
Yeah.
But I mean, I do have to give Square credit here. They did support that game pretty well and for a very long time. It is sad that it ended on such a blemish, but they did support that game significantly.
One more thing on Persona. We also got surprise news. There's certainly no better way for milking your franchise than teaming up with the Dynasty Warriors people and
hell yeah,
beat 'em up Dynasty Warriors game for Persona, which is very weird, but I guess you can literally turn anything into a Dynasty Warriors game.
Hell
they did announce Persona 5 Scramble, the Phantom Strikers for PS4 and Switch. So again, getting everything they can out of those assets.
I mean, I'm mostly joking. I think this is kind of a. I'm not gonna get into the whole like, oh, I'm outraged that they didn't port Persona 5 to the Switch. But it's more like, this is the version of Persona 5 you give to the Switch.
Yeah.
It seems kind of like I don't know, man. Like Persona 5 was released on the PS3. I think a Switch could handle it.
Yeah. Maybe they will eventually.
I feel like,
I don't know. Maybe they'll get R eventually, but
it seems
they're trying to get every last dollar.
A Musou spinoff is
get every last dollar out of those.
Yeah, I mean, like Persona 4, we are in the part of the Persona 5 lifespan where it is time to bring out all of these spinoffs.
Yeah,
it's true. Do we have to skip the last thing on this list?
No, let's do this real quick. Let's do this real quick.
Go ahead, Iro.
Because it involves a game I care about. So,
Famitsu had a poll recently about the Famitsu, major Japanese gaming magazine, had a poll recently about the best games of the Heisei era because it's coming to a close. Number 1, Chrono Trigger.
Yeah, it's a good choice.
From 1995's Chrono Trigger.
Yeah, and
best game of the past 30 years, baby.
Not shocking me at all.
And then, yeah, no, Chrono Trigger is a great fucking game. Like, it's let's not get it twisted here. Frog's theme is the GOAT, is the greatest of all time. There is a fantastic remix of Frog's theme with Kanye's 99 Problems. It's fantastic.
99 Problems is by Jay-Z.
Oh, did I say cut? Wow, that's embarrassing as the hip-hop guy. Wow, fucking string me up. Holy shit, I can't believe I just said that.
Not only did Jay-Z, but you invoked Kanye's name in 2019. But,
hey, I am not the one who fucking said Post Malone's name out loud in a podcast.
Yeah, but I don't fucking know anything about that shit, so I get a free pass.
You cursed us all, Hero.
Anyway, what were the other top 3? Because I believe
number 2 and number 3 were Nier Automata and Zelda Breath of the Wild.
Which, I mean, look, I do agree. A little bit of a side eye listening to 2 games that came out less than 2-3 years ago, but
I can't.
Nier Automata is a really good game, guys.
Breath of the Wild, I'm fine with it. I personally think we could probably have picked something better there, but
I mean, I think the obvious pick would have been Ocarina of Time, right? Like, if you're going to talk about the whole era, right?
I don't know.
Ocarina of Time was number 6. I don't want to go down through the whole list.
I think that
I will say number 4 was Final Fantasy 7 and number 5 was Okami.
Yeah, the Final Fantasy.
Wait, where's Final Fantasy 6?
Final Fantasy choices really pissed me off.
Yeah.
Wait, did 6 not make the list?
Nope.
6 isn't on the list. 7 and 10, I think, were the highest ones, right?
Oh, this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Once we got past the top 3, I was not happy with this list, but
that's why. Let's not talk about it.
Man, fuck this list. Fuck this list.
Number 1, baby.
The Breath of the Wild Ocarina of Time thing gets into the debate of, are you counting more impact or as it's presently constituted, which is a better game, which I think Breath of the Wild is a better game.
I mean, yes, of course. Nobody's going to deny that.
Just general impact.
Is it though?
Yes.
I would gladly play Breath of the Wild over Ocarina of Time in 2019.
Yeah, fucking any day of the week. Sorry.
Ocarina of Time is a great game, and it was an amazing game in its time, completely groundbreaking. I don't think it is aged quite as well as some of the later.
But Zelda stuff. In Ocarina of Time, when you fight a dude, it actually serves a purpose, and you can't just walk past the dude and not lose your weapon in the process.
I'm not a huge fan of Breath of the Wild. I'm actually not even a huge fan of Zelda in general, and I have a lot of problems with Breath of the Wild too. That's why I don't think it should be at number 2. I'm just saying, if you
honestly, the real bullshit here is why Xenogears is on the list.
Yeah, no.
Wait, Xenogears made the list?
I do not want to get into the rest of this list because we do.
Are you fucking kidding me? Are you telling me people in Japan more highly revere fucking Xenogears than Final Fantasy VI?
Yeah, let's move on.
Anyway,
so. That's going to do it for the news stories.
Chrono Trigger number 1, baby.
Chrono Trigger, yes, I'm perfectly fine with that, and nor am I surprised.
Yes, we offer our congratulations to Frog and Robo for this achievement.
So let's move along. I mentioned I wanted to shout out shows that were turning 10 in the spring 2019 season. So these are shows that first debuted in spring 2009. Which is probably about the time I think many of us were getting into watching anime currently airing.
I mean, it's the first season I watched of anime as it aired in Japan.
Same here.
Yeah, so
which is kind of mind-blowing to me because it includes some anime that in my brain feel like they did not air that long ago, but
talking about this shit's all old.
Yeah, right. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, obviously Jill said 10 years. In my brain, these anime aired like, I don't know, 5 years ago or something.
Yeah, so I thought it'd be an interesting thing to do, since from like 2009 on, I feel like we all have pretty extensive knowledge of anime that has been out because we were, hanging out in the blogs and writing about it and stuff like that. So I feel like we're going to be familiar with like most of the stuff as we're, creeping up as we're getting older here. Yeah. So I don't want to spend too much time on each show. Just give them a bit of a shout out, for better or worse. Anime that
I'm glad you included that part.
Yes. So just saying they were notable. We can debate whether they were good or not, but the notable releases from spring 2009. The biggest one, obviously, Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, began airing 10 years ago. I still have not watched it.
If you talk to all the Western people who are not into anime, you'd think that aired last week.
Yes, Hiro, we know. We know that you are forced to interact with a lot of normies who don't shut up about Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, but look, as somebody who doesn't as somebody who is not forced to talk to people who don't shut up about that show, I like that anime. Yeah, sure. It was good. It was like Bones did a great job with that adaptation.
Yep. Still have not watched it. It
is a fine shonen series.
One of the larger holes in just my general anime knowledge, I suppose. Although I've certainly picked up a lot just out of osmosis over the years, as you do with any of these big titles. So that's a good one. We also had the first season of K-On! Debuted.
Oh boy.
The beginning of the end.
I did watch that later on in my anime career. I watched the first season of K-On!
I feel like everybody's kind of forgotten about K-On! A little bit. You don't really ever hear anybody talk about it.
And I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I feel like it's, for as much as I like to, give shit to K-On!, like realistically, K-On! Is just, like Haruhi, it is just one of those shows that was like fucking
right place, right time,
monstrously huge at the time, and that time has passed.
It's had its time in the sun, but I still think it very well holds up if you're looking for an anime comedy.
It is.
Is the manga still going?
No, that ended.
No. There's actually a new. I think there's like a new manga now, like the next generation kind of thing.
Sure, why not?
That didn't last long either. The manga is terrible. Like this was one of the first. Yeah. This is one of the first examples of KyoAni taking just pure trash and turning it into something pretty decent. And I think I think it's still like genre defining. You may not like the genre.
Yes. Yeah.
No,
But
certainly
not like
not.
the genre. I still think it is like best in class for for what it's doing, or one of the best even to this day. So,
like 80% of anime airing nowadays is indebted to K-On! You got to give it credit for that.
Yes,
that is true.
Yes,
I cannot deny that.
Still some of the best EDs. I literally only kept watching it because of the "Don't Say Lazy" ending. I was like,
well, speaking of shows that were almost entirely carried by their god tier opening and ending sequences, let's get into the next one on this list.
All right, yep. So next one on the list was Eden of the East, another one I never got around to watching.
Yeah, I watched this.
Despite what I just did, I fucking I have a real soft spot for Eden of the East.
Yeah,
like there's like a weird sensibility to its storytelling that I actually really enjoyed at the time.
Eden of the East was a good show. The only problem is it never fully lived up to its premise. Never fully lived up to its potential. Sort of went on a lot of weird sideways, and especially talking about the ending in those movies.
But yeah, so the thing I was going to say is the problem with Eden of the East. Eden of the East's biggest problem is the way it decided to end. Basically, it really shot itself in the foot multiple times there.
Yeah,
they had multiple chances to not fuck it up, and they somehow fucked it up each time.
It never really lives up to the potential of this cool premise of a selected number of people are given an amount of money to save the country, because it spends a lot of times on the entire runtime of that actual anime is like a bunch of arcs where they like compete with one particular other competitor instead of all of the competitors coming together and having like their big show off. And that's what I said, like, it never really lives up to its premise, to its potential.
I think that is why, like, 10 years later, to be frank, despite saying I have a soft spot for that show, its legacy is, again, its god tier opening and ending sequences, the cool fucking phone, and the white scribble dicks.
I remember that. Though I gotta say, it is one of the, like, it was an anime, the kind of which we don't often see. Like, this was like a genuine, like, techno thriller kind of thing, and that's not something you see in anime a lot.
Yeah, no,
it's done well. Like, usually,
yes. There we go. That is the
kind of roll our eyes when those types of shows pop up because they're always like so like too serious or like whatever, and just
I mean,
Psychopath's really popular.
Yeah,
looks a camera.
We'll get to Psychopath.
I would put Psychopaths on like the same level as Eden of the East.
So yes. In terms of great premise,
you're right.
Fairly interesting execution, and then just completely goes off the rails at the end.
Hyper baby.
I will.
Oh my god, that
acquiesce to that statement.
All right. Let's shout out to also.
Here we go.
Sengoku Basara, which we have shouted out previously when that high school thing came out a couple.
Dog.
But this is the season in 2009 where the first season debuted. So once more,
put your guns on, baby.
Guns on.
Oh man,
sure.
Yeah, that was a super fun show.
Like, here's the thing. Realistically, of the shows we've listed so far, Sengoku Basara is probably like maybe like vaguely the worst out of all of these shows. I would say but also like, sorry,
yes, I would say on paper it is the worst, but also yes,
in execution, like
the fun factor is probably the highest.
Yes. Like, Sengoku Basara is definitely one of those shows where, like, I'm not going to try and like be like, oh, it had important historical context, but I feel like Iro and Aqua, since you guys mentioned, like, this was around the time when you first started following anime as it aired, and I think this is true for a lot of people, around our age. I think Sengoku Basara was probably a lot of people's first exposure to like that specific brand of like anime over the top, like dumbassery. Just like dudes riding horses uphill, like up like castle walls.
Yeah.
Or like a dude like fucking wielding 6 swords, between his fingers. Or like, the highly accurate historical depiction of a battle involving Tokugawa's most loyal retainer, a literal samurai Gundam. It just
right.
Yes. The thing I'll actually mention about it real quick is maybe one of the first soundtracks to put one Hiroyuki Sawano on the map.
Oh, yeah, I was just about to say that was Sawano, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was not one of his first scores, but it was one of his first scores where he begins to explore the musical identity he is now.
His own song, and then he would go on to copy for the 10 years.
Yes, but as a result, it really did give Sengoku Basara this very like brash, outlandish, very very unique personality.
So there we go. That might be the most lasting aspect of the legacy of this particular season of anime, of the spring season 2009.
The rise
was
of
Sawano. The time when Sawano wrote his one song.
Yeah.
Look, as somebody who has a soft spot, as someone who considers Sawano's soundtracks something of a guilty pleasure, I cannot deny these allegations.
Well, speaking of shows about cute girls that nobody seems to remember anymore, do you guys remember Saki?
Oh, Saki is still
dude, this is the
hella
one on the
popular,
list.
man.
Is it
Saki
though?
is still hella.
I was gonna say, isn't that like still huge in Japan?
It has like a live action series. It has like 3 manga spin-offs going on. It has like movies.
That's about shogi, right?
Yeah, Saki is still pretty big.
Maybe it's just the English speaking fandom then that I've never.
Is it about shogi or is it about mahjong?
And I was about to say, like, Saki was maybe like the first of those cute girls doing cute things anime with like massive casts to take off. But then I remembered that K-On! Aired in this season.
Yeah, right, I mean, I would say...
So... And K-On! Only has 4 characters, but that
is 5. True, because Saki was like the first, like... If Saki aired today, it would have been a gacha game, because it has like this massive cast of like interchangeable cute girls with their quirks, and they're all super gay.
It would be perfect.
Oh my god, it would be a gacha game. It would be like a shogi gacha game. How does this not exist yet?
Or mahjong, right? They play mahjong.
Mahjong. Sorry, mahjong.
It was certainly a big deal at the time.
Maybe it does, and we don't know it.
I'm going to be rich.
Yeah, let's fire up a production committee and get that going if it doesn't exist already. But all right, so that's pretty much it for the shows we wanted to shout out, and I think we'll maybe do that again next season. See what happened in summer 2009. And that should be fun. But yeah, so let's move along to talk about the couple of shows that we actually are watching.
You thought we wouldn't be able to fill a podcast.
I probably should have known better because we're already at 120 here, and
never underestimate the ability to completely derail ourselves with a tangent.
I did want to just...
That's the thing, we haven't really derailed ourselves that much. We've mostly stayed on topic.
Yeah. So
for the meaning of the word,
I did just want to throw out the general question of: is this season legitimately like? Is there just not a lot of interesting shows this season, or are we just like getting old and time is passing us by here? Like
both.
Nah, I mean,
both.
Yes and no. I feel like. I don't know. I think this season genuinely is just not that interesting. I mean,
I'm watching a lot of shows. I just am not like hella into any one of them.
But what I'm saying is like I don't think it's us getting old because we were literally talking about seasons with stuff, with like Gridman and Lupin and whatever else made our top 10 of 2018 list.
We had like 6 or 7 shows to talk about last season, so I mean,
I think it really depends on your taste.
Yeah, sure, but I'm saying is, like, I think we all talked about like how. Yes,
I'm just saying that because you and I have very different tastes, and you have you say, "Oh, there was a lot of great stuff last year," whereas I had the feeling there was not a lot of great stuff last year. So I think it's just a matter of perception, and that now we just have this. It happens to be a season where a lot of ours have this idea that there's not a lot of great stuff because there's just not enough in that intersection. I don't know.
I mean, sure, fine. You beat me to the punch because yes, I was going to say 2018. I feel like we were all talking about, or most of us were talking about how that was one of the strongest years in anime we'd seen in a while. But I mean, hell, it was one of the strongest. I thought it was because hell, my favorite anime didn't even make number 1. It was something you guys liked, so I thought that would have been
airing this season.
But I feel like. Because here's the thing, I'm not even saying this is a weak season because it doesn't have a stylish action spectacle. I feel like this is a weak season because
we don't even Fairy Gone not stylish or actually enough for you.
Oh boy, that show.
Is Demon Slayer not stylish or actually enough for you?
Oh my dude, Demon Slayer is stylish. We can get into that. But the only problem is it is only stylish.
You guys are still watching Fairy Gone and Demon Slayer, right?
Yeah,
nominally, yes.
Yeah, nominally is the right word to use there.
Look, here's the thing. If we want to get into real quick, with Demon Slayer, it's not an anime that deserves a whole segment, but UFO Table does good work. That is a supremely good looking anime.
They are putting their power behind something that maybe doesn't quite deserve that.
Yeah, like
also
like
basically what Ufotable have been doing for the last 10 years.
Exactly.
Ouch! Wow!
Exactly.
Damn! Fucking
no,
shots
you're
fired
right.
at the venerable. What you're not gonna defend the venerable Fate franchise?
The best Ufotable Fate things in order are number 1, Fate Zero, number 2, today's menu for the Emiya family.
Oh, not even. Oh wait, no, they didn't.
What
do
about Garden?
No, they did not. That was more than 10 years ago.
Oh, okay.
But the thing, I guess the thing I will say is like
probably.
Anyway, go ahead.
Oh god, it's been so long.
Release girls' work, you cowards.
The thing I was gonna say is like that show looks good. Like not even just from like a pure like they put a lot of budget, but like style wise, it's a slick looking show. Like they use like these really like here. Okay, sorry, art tangent coming in, but they use line weight in a really stylish, cool way. And like for those unfamiliar, line weight is basically like the variation in line thickness in an illustration in a frame. So like you'll use thinner lines and thicker lines on a drawing to emphasize certain aspects of it. And Demon Slayer does this in a really good way. It looks like really sharp, really bold, in like a really enjoyable way. And finally, in episode 4, they finally busted out like the sick ass like Okami / The World's End with You style, like bold poppy, like graffiti-esque like elemental effects.
The main character has like water attacks, and so when he throws the water power on his sword, it creates the like ukiyo-e wave effect.
Yeah. But it's like ukiyo-e, but like through like the lens of like,
but it's flat,
like kind of like
flat shading,
like pop graphic design cool aesthetic.
And is this an anime original thing, or is that also in the manga?
No, it's based off a Shonen Jump manga, which tells you everything.
No, I mean that effect, like, is it?
Oh, it's in the manga.
Yeah.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Because when I see that anime, I think like that doesn't fit at all. Like I'm trying to imagine what the thing G is describing looks like, and I just can't gel that with like the extremely generic Sengoku era look of that show. Like,
you can pull up the opening after the podcast.
Yeah.
Yes. The opening has a great, as me and Eros said last time, we watched the first episode, and I think we were both like, I don't know if I want to keep watching this. And then they show the OP at the end of the episode, and
we were
there's like a 10-20
segments
sequence where they bust out these cool ass element effects, and I was like, oh, we should probably watch more of this. But it's just cool. It looks cool. It's framed well. And the problem though is it's an adaptation of a weekly Shonen Jump manga, and not necessarily a good one like My Hero Academia or The Promised Neverland.
Just a middling Shonen Jump battle manga, and all the like writing foibles that implies.
But Iroh, it only gets good after 80 chapters.
Oh yeah. I fucking read 80 chapters. It doesn't get that much better.
Yeah,
I mean, it has to be doing something right, or you have too much free time.
I guess that's a thing, right? Is like, and I think that's kind of why we talk about like this season in the way we do, because as much as I love how it looks, I don't think this is a show I'd really be keeping up with if this was a season with stuff like Lupin Part 5 or Megalobox or what have you. Like, you know, but in a season like this, where we are kind of like, you know, scrounging for scraps here, it's something that somehow manages to stay in the rotation.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from. It's just, I think it's a matter of perception. It's just like, for me, it's just like a bit of a breath of fresh air, because I have like 2 shows I really look forward to actually watching, like as soon as they come out.
Right, and then nothing else to like sap at your attention.
Yeah, whereas usually anime is just like, all right, I guess that is out.
Oh, great! Now I have to watch this show with Sig and Iroh again.
Yeah, not that I don't enjoy it, but
don't fucking act like you are.
It feels a bit like
don't act like you're too fucking good for Kotobuchi. All right,
no,
we watch it every week, and we had a ball of a time.
Talk point not even about just the having different tastes, but also just like what we're used to. So for Aqua, like having 2 shows to watch is a lot more than he might usually watch. Whereas, you know, for me, I'm used to having like 5 or 6 shows I'm watching, and this season I'm only watching 2, and that's a big drop for me. So, you know, that's
Everything's relative.
Everything's relative, I suppose.
I guess, I guess what I mean at the end of the day is I don't feel like we have that intersection, because I feel like, I think last year was maybe the first year in a while where we were all
roughly in agreement.
What?
No, I think he's trying to say the opposite.
I would say 2018 was the first year in a while where where things were somewhat contentious about what is the obvious highlight of the year. Whereas previous years, we had stuff like Maiden Abyss, we had stuff like Erased. I feel like that is kind of the kind of show I feel like we are still looking for in 2019 is that show that everybody is
only a season and a half in.
So. I mean, it should be
right. I guess it's just I feel like
it should be Sarazanmai, that's
yes, the great Khan of anime that will unite the warring tribes.
I mean, I'd be willing to make a case for Carole and Tuesday, because that's just a show I'd recommend to anyone.
Speaking of Carole and Tuesday, we really need to keep this podcast moving.
All right, fine. Yes, let's get into it.
So let's talk about Carole and Tuesday, specifically episodes 2 and 3, since we first talked about it. So in episode 2, we saw the girls. So let me start off with this. So we kind of know that they're going to get famous at some point, right? Because literally every episode starts with the narrator saying, and it was known as the legendary whatever moment of, so there's a certain sense of inevitability here, right? And that's kind of where we start seeing the groundwork getting laid in episodes 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Where they have their little, they break into a concert hall to play their song on a real piano. And
a real space piano.
Yeah. That piano is wild, dog. That was the thing that stuck out the most to me in these episodes. That piano is so fucking extra.
The creepy tech guy decides to film it and post it on Instagram without their permission. And
I can't hate that tech guy. It looks like he builds Gunpla. So.
True. Yes, he had some pretty nice looking robots in his room there at home or whatever. But and that kind of goes sort of a little bit viral, I guess. And
that seems to be
the also
vibe, right?
managed to track them down very quickly with that facial recognition software, which is kind of creepy.
Well, I think it's more that
that's future, baby.
We already talking fucking 2019 about how people should be careful about tagging their location in a photo. Yeah. Fucking in 2050 or whatever this takes place in, Carole and Tuesday, look, they're nice girls, but I think it was maybe somewhat of a bad mood to tag your location when taking a photo of yourself in your own home.
Yeah.
I feel like that's just
on your completely unaltered since 2019 Instagram account.
Yes.
It's like 2,500.
I mean, that's the thing. I get the idea that the chronology of the show is not what we think it is.
I get that feeling. Right. I mean, the implication is that
it's not actually important to the thing.
Yeah, but I get the feeling the show is set in 2025 or something, and that it's actually in an alternate time where we migrated to Mars 50 years ago. I mean, because they reference a lot of. The manager guy mentioned, I worked with Justin Bieber, who's a contemporary pop star, and this guy looks like he's in his 50s or something. So,
yeah, yes, that aspect of it is definitely the weird part where it's they're motherfucking dropping names like Cyndi Lauper and Justin Bieber as if these are names that should be relevant in the time period this anime takes place in, and.
I mean, it's really weird that Carole and Tuesday know who Cyndi Lauper is, but they don't know who, Justin Bieber is.
Which is,
right.
It's...
I mean, it's like I was saying, right, that the setting is basically set dressing for the plot in this show.
But they use it for a lot of, super fun world-building aspects. I just love the touchscreen menu tables.
It makes for really fun visual stuff, and I assume it's meant to...
Yeah, my favorite moment in episode 2 is when Tuesday is hired as, a professional griever, which is, this kind of
I love
insane dystopian thing that you could totally see happening.
Dude, that's so cyberpunk. Yeah. I fucking love it. That's the most cyberpunk fucking thing right there.
While it is incongruous in certain ways, it's there to highlight the soullessness of whatever versus the true heart that the girls have.
Right. So the thing I kind of want to get into is like I am genuinely enjoying the show. I am genuinely like looking forward to it every week. It's definitely the thing I would call the most like unanimously decent show of the season. Here's the thing where I feel like I am not sure I am settled on yet whether this is intentional or not, or if this is just a preference thing. But for all the musical talent that is attached to this show, I feel like so far the music isn't really that noteworthy yet. Like,
and are you talking?
I think Carole and Tuesday's.
Are you
what?
Are you talking score or soundtrack or both?
I kind of both. Yeah. Like, I think Carole and Tuesday's songs are good. I like their songs, but they're good in that very kind of standard pop way. But like the rest of the music in that show, like I can't tell if like it's intentionally not that good because it's like, oh, like all the other music in this show is being created by those fake AI musicians, or if the music is actually just genuinely like outside of that context, still just not
the OP.
I mean, the thing is, like, the OP and ED, I think they're really good. They're really good pop songs. I've heard them. I've had them stuck in my head all week, and I've only heard them 3 times, which is an incredibly like rare thing for me.
Sure, and that's why I'm willing to concede that this might just be a preference thing, because like for me, like go ahead.
For the music that's actually in the show, like I've been doing some research because the website offers like credits for all of the songs that show up in the show, which is pretty fun.
Yeah.
Because of course I'm super interested in reading which of these musicians made these songs. I think like Ertegun's song, like the DJ guy that shows, like I think that's pretty clearly supposed to be like super generic EDM to show off that
right, like that's like when I hear tracks like that, I'm like, is that intentionally not
considering his character? I think yes.
I mean, they got Taku Takahashi to do that, who's like the guy who did the Pantheon Stalking soundtrack with.
Right, but that's the thing is that dude, that like Taku Takahashi is really good. So like, are they telling him to intentionally make like a generic, not very good track?
I get the feeling that for Ertegun, it definitely is the case.
And I guess what I'm thinking is like, is there going to be like a halfway point where all of a sudden, like they lift the curtain and there's actually all of these really amazing songs that they're saving for like the back half when all of these musicians
playing the long game,
discover their true selves, basically.
I do wonder because, and there's also like, because I think Carole and Tuesday's song, like the one they actually show play in the game, are pretty good. Like the laundry song and the
I like their songs, which is why I wonder if everybody else's songs are made to be intentionally not that interesting, or again, if this is just a preference thing, because like, I'm more of a hip hop guy, so like for me, that's why something like Samurai Champloo resonates so much with me. Like I really like jazz and blues. That's why Bebop's soundtrack resonated so well with me. I'm not as into the kind of stuff that Space Dandy was doing musically, but I really dug it in the context of the show. And I wonder if that's because those are musical styles I am more like I'm just more receptive to versus like I mean I'm not saying I'm too good for pop. I got plenty of pop tracks on my Spotify, but like it's not really the genre that speaks to me. So when I hear the stuff in Carole and Tuesday,
I think they probably want to have specifically Carole and Tuesday making music that is kind of more singer-songwriter-ish because it contrasts to the computer-generated stuff. But
the thing is, this is always the risk you take when you make a show about like these cool musicians who are changing the world with their music. Like you actually have to make music that will convince people that this is like an actual hit. That's like the biggest risk you take with this kind of show.
Yeah, I guess that's the thing is like if this show like ends at the culmination of Carole and Tuesday's efforts to create this legendary 7 minutes of music is like a very solid top 40s hits pop track. For me, like, I mean, for people who love pop and really appreciate pop, I'm sure for them, they're like, oh, wow, like, that's awesome. But for me, it's like, I guess for me, again, this is, I think, maybe just personal preference. It's just like, for me, I don't see how, in the context of the setting, this is the track that changes everything.
Yeah, that's a huge risk they're taking.
Yeah, you can't just like...
At some point, you have to just, like, write that off as allowing the narrative to progress, though, right?
I mean, but this is where you get like your dumbass love life situation, where it's like, this is our great song that represents our hopes and dreams, and it sounds exactly like every other fucking song we've sung.
Right, it is the most like manufactured idol track.
Yeah, that's why I always liked
right.
when I've seen other, whether it's anime or other TV shows or whatever, whenever they would present that kind of situation where they would just like never actually show the song, because there's no way you can actually like, if you could write an amazing life-changing song, why would you just go do that and not make a cartoon? Like this
is not the greatest song of all time. This is just a tribute.
You know,
yes, that's
yes, you beat me to it. But I guess I don't want to, I know we're going on a bit, I guess, but the thing I just want to say is like, I guess I'm not against a piece of fiction being about the making of something, but I think for me, I guess it's just the context will heavily affect that, because for example, like to bring up another anime that I really do love that is about making something, which is Shirobako. And, that anime is all about these people throwing their lives into making this anime. And quite frankly, the anime they're making in that show is not that special. It's not that good,
that's
right?
That's the genius of Shirobako. That's the cynicism of that show.
Right. Well, like, it is both the cynicism, but I think it is also like, as an artist, it represents the kind of like, there is something heartwarming about like, look at what these people are like really like putting all their effort into. Like maybe it's not the most like important thing in the world, but that doesn't invalidate their efforts. Yeah. And I think if Carole and Tuesday took more of that angle with their like career progression, I think maybe that's a version of the story I would be more into, instead of, Carole and Tuesday's like pop track is going to like revitalize music as we know it on Mars.
Yeah, but that's a very valid point, actually. That is true.
Yeah. So
well,
but I guess that's not all to say I'm not enjoying it.
I'm still
I'm still enjoying that show. But
briefly, aside from the music, I do like just the relationship between the two main girls, and just kind of it's a fun show, right? Like we had that episode.
That was about to be my next point.
We had like episode 3, like most notably, like when they're in the laundromat and they start making the song there or whatever, and it's just like it's just fun, right? I mean,
yeah, I love that scene. It was just the most fucking like, it takes place on Mars,
and he's just like guess we'll join in.
Yeah, like it takes place on Mars, but like thematically, you could tell like that is so much intended to be like the most fucking like New York City ass fucking thing in the world, right? It's just like two girls just start jamming and jamming some tunes out, and then just dude just decides to join.
Well, I got nothing else going on here.
This is my life now.
I gotta wait for my
really like.
We're all just waiting.
Yeah, exactly.
What I really like about that scene, and also the one in episode 1, is that the music is actually like sound edited to sound live, whereas usually in anime where you have like someone playing music, that's just like a studio track playing.
It's all like
Whereas here it actually sounds like they're playing the instruments and singing within the scene.
That's something I don't have ears
They're not
good
like
enough
double
to
tracked and stuff like that. It's all
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I really did enjoy that detail. Like, I think that's why I say, like, my favorite moments in this show are when it's, like, Carole and Tuesday are just, like, jamming tracks out. Like, my favorite scene in this entire show so far is the first time they sing that song. Like, the kind of, like, awkward, like, collaboration aspect of it, And I think for me is, like, I want way more of those to, like, really sell me on the show versus, like, again, like, fucking Erdogan's EDM garbage.
Yeah, I'm assuming as they kind of get more settled into the structure of making music as opposed to fending for their lives right now, that will be.
I'm still very interested in seeing, like, if Taku Takahashi is Erdogan, who Flying Lotus and Thundercat are going to be, like this weird ambient jazz electronic kind of guy. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess that's the thing. I feel like it would be a waste to bring on all these great musicians to have them make intentionally generic music. So I hope they let those guys really bust out their best work later in the show.
All right. One more point I just want to throw in here as me complaining about Shinichiro Watanabe being a cranky old man here.
The Tao
no,
stuff.
I'm not even gonna get into him, but the the music references we kind of touched on a little bit so far have been
they are so
far have been, so episode 1 was Cyndi Lauper's True Colors, the title, right? Episode 2 was Bruce Springsteen's Born to Run, and then the worst one is episode 3, Fire and Rain by James Taylor of all people.
Yeah, it's. Like I said, I love Watanabe, but man, if this is his taste in music, man, like I don't even know how the fuck Bebop and Shampoo got made. So
the James Taylor one really hit me hard. I was like, really?
Yeah, I was like, I'm not kidding when I say it's the most fucking boomer ass fucking.
Yeah,
like,
that's peak.
Hey man,
yeah,
give Watanabe credit where it's due. He is a #woke. He is a #woke hipster because he referenced Banksy.
Oh, he did make the Banksy.
Oh my god! Yes. I don't even.
That was pretty.
Again,
pretty
like
I lost it at that. It was so good.
I wish I hadn't been spoiled on that because man, that is fantastic.
For anybody not amazing. Familiar, I'll throw the link for that in the notes. It was one of the paintings that Erdogan had.
That was in Erdogan's house.
But anyway. Let's move on to our final. Now that we're way over time already, let's move on to our final topic here. Sarazanmai, episode 2 and 3. Iroh and G, I know you guys didn't watch 2 and 3.
I have not seen it. I've not seen it yet.
Yeah, I have not kept up.
I plan on getting to it at some point.
I probably don't unless I hear some like really fantastic.
So I decided to write about this, which I have not done in a long time, on a weekly basis. So if anybody wants more detailed thoughts, you can go check those out. But just as sort of in summation, my general idea, I feel like this is like the most straightforward Ikuhara has ever been with his storytelling, especially once we got to episode 3.
Really?
It actually has like a story you can more or less follow.
So this might be the first thing I enjoy of his.
Yeah, so in episode 2, I mean, if you guys don't mind us spoiling it, but in episode 2, we kind of got more backstory a bit on Kazuki's, I guess, to the extent he is willing to go to keep his little brother happy, because they end, in the episode itself, they end up chasing around this massive fat cat that is their like pet cat. He ends up.
Yeah, I'm sorry. How can you not enjoy an anime that is about a wannabe gangster who has this ruler as a sword, and a guy who cross-dresses as an idol to take selfies for his little brother, chasing a big fat cat throughout a ninja-themed theme park while pretending to be on a date because the big fat cat stole the wannabe gangster's weed?
Yes, I don't know. I've seen that episode of Metabots.
So I remember part of it is like they're really not like pulling like any punches here. Like the like delinquent kid guy is like basically selling drugs, and the fat cat like eats one of his dime bags, and that's why he ends up chasing him through the ninja themed amusement park, which is having couples day, so he has to pretend to be a couple with Kazuki, who's still dressed up as the idol girl. But that kind of ends on the big, they have their big Sarazanmai thing at the end where they reveal that one of their secrets, and they show the main kid wanted the main kid's little brother was like, I want a cat, so he like went and stole somebody's cat. That's where he got it from.
Okay.
And so
I feel like people, why steal somebody else's cat, man? Fucking stray cats are a dime a dozen.
People doing weird sociopathic shit to like make their disabled and or ill sibling happy is a very Ikuhara thing.
Yes.
We got
this is what Penguin Drum was about. So
we got a little glimpse of that, and they're continuing. I guess it's going to be a thing where they just drop bombs after the credits, because the very last thing we see in episodes 2 is the main kid Kazuki is very tired, and he's still dressed up as the idol girl, and he falls asleep. And the glasses kid Enta comes up and just plants one on him. Gives him a kiss while he's laying there on the ground.
Does he know it's his friend, or does he think
you remember in the...
Oh, right, because they know they find out about it at the end of episode 1.
He's 100% sure. And in case there was any doubt whatsoever as to what was going on, at the beginning of episode 3, literally within seconds, we get inside the glasses kid's head, and he's like, I'm in love with Kazuki. I want to kiss him. There's no...
All right.
There's like no room for interpretation or
I mean, I guess if there was any last bastion of Ikahara fans out there holding out and be like, no, his stuff isn't gay. It's actually about something totally different.
I think if you're arguing Ikahara's works are not gay, then you're not really an Ikahara fan.
Yeah, I feel like this one probably puts that to rest.
The Ikahara thing is always like you will get your canon gays, but you'll have to take the fact with them that they'll probably be weird and fucked up. Like,
well, I guess that's the thing, right? It's like I feel like past Ikahara works like always dealt in that subtext, but it was always mostly subtext.
Have you seen Yuri Kuma Arashi?
No, I actually
have
not.
Pretty explicitly gay. So,
all right. Yeah. I mean, I gotta be frank, right? Like the last Ikahara anime I actually watched was Utena.
I would say with Yuri Kuma, it was so weird that yes, it was very openly like gay and like very much more in your face with the sexuality, of course, but
it was still like steeped in those like weird class S tropes of the like girls being touchy-feely with each other, but it's all just like all-girl high school thing.
Yeah, it was still like detached enough from reality that while you can't really misinterpret it, it felt like it was more playing into those tropes, like you're saying, than being like a real like
looking at it through a filter, whereas here it's like clear. It's like, okay, this is a relatively normal kid going to a relatively normal school, and he's gay. Like,
and he's in love with his friend, and there's like no room for misinterpretation or like seeing it a different way. That's what's happening here, and it's both kind of interesting and kind of maybe a little bit heartbreaking because it's clear that it's a one-sided thing, I think, and then he kind of has. I mean, his imagination runs off with him a couple times as he's, trying.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, you don't. How much of that last imagined spot is his imagination, and how much isn't?
And that's what I'm
like. The whole thing where like, the football club had you do it as a dare. Was that imagination, or did that actually happen?
Yeah,
that is like.
Because what happens is so most of the episode is the kind of in the glasses kid's head as he's kind of working out his feelings and like how he's frustrated and also feels kind of guilty for kissing him and everything. And then when they do the big Sarazanmai, it reveals a couple scenes of him like grabbing his jersey from his locker and hugging it and more
doing standard anime crush creepy stuff.
Yeah, on a little bit of the creepier side, going and finding his recorder from his desk and putting his mouth on it.
Having the writer to use subtext, and they're all cowards.
I think that there's an anime that did
that's
that.
A trope. That's
specifically the recorder.
Happened in other
places. But I don't remember which.
Usually not involving a boy being in love with another boy, but yes, that is a thing that has come up. But the thing that Aqua was talking about, like after they do the Sarazanmai, he kind of has like this dream sequence where Kazuki accepts it and they decide to be together forever. But when because the Sarazanmai obviously revealed his crush, like it basically revealed that he's in love with the main kid. But once he kind of snaps out of his like dream vision of what he wants to happen, you don't really not much happens. Like the main kid's like, oh hey, what happened to you or whatever. Like there's no like reaction, and then I don't know if there's going to be more on that later, or so it's kind of hard to tell like where his like imagination ended and how much does the main kid really know yet? And based on what we've seen so far, I feel like they're going to tell us maybe next week or something. But that was just kind of a interesting question at the end there. But because I would think he would have a reaction, right? Like if you saw something like that. But anyway, it does end, and then the post credits bomb this week is showing that Kazuki's little brother is like sick in a wheel and has to get around in a wheelchair. And I realized, oh, we've never actually seen him walk or anything.
Yeah.
And they so that's part of what, if Kazuki seems a little desperate, that's, setting up his, I guess, motivations for that or whatever. But
his little brother who has a ponytail and is voiced by Rie Kugimiya, but is definitely a boy.
Yes. Well, he's supposed to be like very young. So, like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Man, now this just reminds me of, there's this one arc in Gundam Build Fighters Try where
which arc is
there's
we
this
talking
one
about?
Remember the dude who like has to fight? He uses the gunpla his little sick brother built for him to win the tournament or to try to win the tournament. He's like the boxer dude.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It just reminded me of that.
Oh, I guess the other thing. I guess the other important thing you guys missed. So when they do the Sarazanmai and eat the Shurikodama,
right. They have to reveal one of their
secrets. That, but they also get a hope dish, which is like a magic plate that grants a wish.
Hope, yeah.
And
except they only get one in the first episode, and then afterwards they get like silver dishes, which are worth like 10 silver dishes or one gold dish.
It's like a gacha game where the gold, you want to get the gold ones, but sometimes the gold ones will drop and sometimes the silver ones will drop, and you have to get 5 silver ones to get a gold one.
Yeah, I think I'll just wait till the anniversary event when they're like dropping like 10 gold dishes every 10 day.
Gold dishes for logging in, and
yeah.
But so that's kind of, so now the boys have like a motivation for fighting the zombie Kappa because they will get, but it's kind of setting up
and fighting each other. Yeah,
it's going to set up a conflict because obviously they're all going to want to make a wish, and there's only so many of these dishes to go around. So that's kind of where they're headed with that plot wise. But yeah, I mean, just overall, like I'm saying, I feel like, and then there certainly is plenty of weird things going on that I don't understand, particularly with the hot cops. But I feel like this has been like the most straightforward storytelling experience of any Ikuhara anime I've seen so far.
It's like I said in my first impressions, there are 3 layers. There is like the basic layer where it's like a relatively basic story of like these 3 kids have to fight monsters and they get a thing that grants their wishes if they fight the monsters, and it's enjoyable on that level. And then you have like the baby's first symbolism level, where it's like, where it's like symbolism that everyone can understand, like
right.
The Kappa stuff is like, oh yeah, they do sumo poses because that's a Kappa thing and all that kind of stuff. And then there's like the 3rd level, which is like beyond into the stratosphere, the level that only Ikuhara himself will ever understand. But I think that makes it a very good and appealing show because you can enjoy it as like mindless entertainment. You can enjoy it as like, yes, I see, indeed. And you can understand it as like, what the fuck is going on? So I think it's that triple appeal that quite well sums up why the show is so interesting to me.
Yeah. And I feel like it is probably closest to Penguin Drum in that regard, because Penguin Drum was also kind of similarly layered and probably the next easiest one to understand, even though I think even Penguin Drum was a bit more like obtuse at this point. But yeah.
I mean, Penguin Drum also had the advantage of being 24 episodes and therefore a bit more grandiose in scope.
Yeah,
so it had like a lot of
longer. Yeah. But yeah, I'm really enjoying it. My only criticism is, like, I fully expected and maybe even demand that there is some kind of looped, recycled sequence in every episode that is like uncomfortably long and also probably has music to it. Like, but we have like 2 now because we have like the actual like fight with the Kappa, which is like basically the same. They like tweak some of the words or whatever.
Yeah.
And then we have
they
cop.
Totally reanimated that scene to have Enta in the middle now.
Yeah, I guess. But the audience, like, conceptually, like, your brain is still basically processing.
It's like an endless 8 thing. Like we put all of this effort into reanimated the same shit.
Yes. and then there's the hot cop sequence when they do whatever they're doing, when they have their whole song. So like literally like that's like 5 minutes of the episode recycled every week automatically so far. But I imagine that will not keep going every episode for too much longer. But yeah. All right.
I mean, is it because you're watching an Ikuhara show? Ikuhara shows are always like 20% stock footage.
Right. Like I said, I was expecting at least one sequence to do that, but now we have 2. So
yeah.
I mean, I've always said because of that trait, that trait of his and his directing style, that I think Ikuhara would make for a great mecha anime director.
I would love to see a mecha anime done by Ikuhara.
He would direct one hell of a Gatai sequence. That is true.
Yes, that's kind of what I meant. Like, that is a dude who certainly knows how to use the stuff.
I guess my only problem is like the recycled sequences here are not anywhere near on the level of like the Penguin Drum or Rutena ones, which I was happy to watch every single time. But especially the Utena one where she's walking up the stairs.
Yeah, those Utena ones, man.
Yeah.
All right, so I think probably wraps it up now that we've crossed 2 hours.
I'd say so. Wow, we're fucking two-hour podcast.
I'm gonna adjust my calibrations on the news, how much time news stories takes for next time, and we'll try and get this down to 90 minutes. Thank you guys for toughing it out, and thank you all for listening.
Of course,
I don't think.
Eero, looks like we have our work cut out for ourselves in the next podcast.
Yeah, great.
So that'll do it. Let's do our housekeeping. You can read everything that we write and put up on theglorioblog.com. You can follow us on Twitter at theglorioblog. Like, comment, subscribe, leave a review, whatever, on the podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Podbean, and you can subscribe to our YouTube channel where we post the podcast there. You can listen to our other podcasts, The Legend of the GLORIO Heroes, where we talk about where Iroh and G talk about the Legend of the Galactic Heroes OVA, and we have started a new venture, which again, as G mentioned, will be out by the time this is out. The Neon Genesis Evanglorio, very creatively named new podcast where we will be watching Neon Genesis Evangelion, if you could not figure that out from the title. And so that'll do it. Thank you guys for sticking it out once again, and we'll talk to everybody next time.
Bye-bye.
See you later.
Bye.